This video is not for the faint of heart. You have been warned. Arsenal. It's funny because when things aren't going well, fans love to ride on their team's historical success, like Arsenal fans, and how they love to glorify the early 2000s. I could talk about how the last time you guys won a title, Facebook had just launched to Harvard students, or how you allowed Leicester to win the league 10 points clear. But let me remind you that in the last 14 minutes of the 2006 Champions League final, you guys blew a lead against Barcelona. And I already know you're going to say the ref cheated, but you guys had the defense and were more than capable of stopping Barcelona. The summer before, you sold your club legend Patrick Vieira at the age of just 29, far too early. No wonder he predicted Arsenal to lose that game. Since then, the curse of selling Vieira has never ended. That was and will be your only appearance in the Champions League final. Embrace it. Aston Villa, a full-time gambler, is your club legend who betted on his own team to lose. That's it. Bournemouth are currently on their high horse. Even if you do finish in the top 10, it won't be the first time you ended the season well and then fell back into irrelevancy or relegation. You're currently betting on Justin Kluivert, who is nowhere near the quality of his dad. Dean Huijsen and Ilya Zabani, it's just a matter of time before their potential is realised by a top flight team. Brentford. To the surprise of many, Brentford have lasted now 4 seasons in the Premier League. But what Brentford fans don't want you to know is that their tenure in the Premier League should actually be much longer than 3.5 years. I mean, just look at the quality of teams that have caused 30 years of playoff suffering to Brentford. Only Preston North End has more playoff defeats than Brentford. And after the Fulham defeat, Thomas Frank didn't even try to keep Ollie Watkins. So along with the 30 years of suffering, Brentford fans have to live with the disappointment of not witnessing probably the best striker pairing in Premier League history. At the minimum, a Conference League or Europa League side with Toney and Watkins. You have to admire Brentford because they signed Ivan Toney when nobody knew who he was, stood by him during his betting suspension until he off to Saudi with 1 year left on his contract. Brighton and Hove Albion. Brighton are a inconsistent team, and Brighton fans know. Brighton fans have this weird illusion that they're overachievers and that their club is so well run simply because they're better than Crystal Palace. And if you think I'm being harsh, how does your board announce the sacking of a manager by handing him a note whilst working on live TV? Who does that? That's how careless Brighton are. You have to give props to Tony Bloom and Paul Barber for their well thought out business model of flipping players like used cars in exchange for profit. £122.8 million of profit in 2022 and nothing to show for it. They do it every year. They're literally a poor man's version of Todd Boehly's Chelsea. The difference is in Brighton, everyone wants to either leave or join them temporarily. With Brighton, top teams can feed on team building players for less and young players can receive more playing time than their actual worth. Their DNA screams inconsistent and their owners obviously have no interest in achieving anything meaningful other than attaining profit. The constant team reshuffling, stripping the midfield of experience and stability is a strong indication of the owner's intentions and overall club direction. Chelsea. Where do I start with Chelsea? First of all, your club legend who you glorify is a racist who had an affair with his teammate's girlfriend. And to make matters worse, Terry, you then go and suppress your secrecy through legal action against newspapers? You have to be a very sick man. Your own teammate, and then you try to suppress it. This is the guy you adore. The same guy that cost you a Champions League title. You say he's the best centre-back in Premier League history, but his actual defensive involvement per game is far lower than players like Vincent Kompany and Nemanja Vidic. We can't talk about Chelsea without mentioning the fact that your former owner, Roman Abramovich, forced the club's sale in 2022 to end 19 glorious years of bought trophies and back to the old Chelsea you likely never knew, a highly competitive mid-table team. You spent £255 million on a reckless, high-risk transfer window. Todd Boehly and Clearlake Capital both squabbling for power with conflicting plans of direction. New John Terry on the block, an inexperienced coach well known for being a quitter. The future is bright for Chelsea. Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace are a joke. Their transfer strategy is to sign championship players, and the fans still wonder why they never finish above 10th place. As a club in South East London, Palace have access to a diverse pool of talent, and your team still stinks. In football, there's 11 players on the pitch. Palace consistently rely on one player just to stay floating in the bottom half of the table. First it was Wilfred Zaha, and now it's Eberechi Eze. And you wonder why your expected goals on a per game basis is so low. They're the laziest club when it comes to team building. Palace barely win, and the club as a whole lacks ambition, and they deserve to be relegated. Everton. Oh, Everton fans. You guys are usually leaving the stadium by the 60th minute, and you love a good boo at the 90th. All people tend not to know is that Everton were actually a great team historically, but now they're just irrelevant. It's actually a joke that Everton fans still think that they're rivals to Liverpool. That's like Espanyol claiming to be rivals with Barcelona. In the last 37 Merseyside derbies, Liverpool have won 20 and lost 3. Everton fans, just accept that Liverpool will always be better than you, and you did this to yourself. Same continued cycle of poor managerial appointments, poor player recruitment, and a declining academy. But if this will cheer you up, you guys will soon have a £500 million new stadium to enjoy in the Championship. Fulham's another team that generally don't know what on earth they're doing or where they're headed. They look like QPR. They're in the country's capital but beneath the dark shadows of Chelsea, just constantly in and out of the Championship. No team even views Fulham as a rival. No team takes you guys seriously. It's funny that the biggest achievement in your club's history is reaching the Europa League final in 2010, a final you shouldn't have even been in. The only reason you beat Juventus in a comeback was because Fabio Cannavaro was sent off, which was the biggest fluke, and you still lost to Atletico Madrid in the final. Ironically, your owner Shahid Khan is also in charge of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a clueless NFL franchise who align themselves with Tottenham Hotspur. All the red flags of doom are still beaming for Fulham. Ipswich Town. It's actually quite hard not to trigger teams like this. Back from the dead, adjusting to life in the Premier League after 22 years, only to drop back into the Championship in just a few months from now. As that day of relegation draws closer, I wonder if Ipswich fans are getting flashbacks to their first relegation from the Premier League, following a 9-0 loss to Manchester United in 1995. Don't be surprised if you fall again in the same fashion.